What's up, YouTube? As always, welcome to the channel. So it's been quite some time since I left the SDA Church. For those that are curious, I am a classical Protestant, or Reformed, if you will. I have been for quite some time now, and I often think back on some of the common myths that I used to hear about Protestants from Seventh-Day Adventists. You know, the pagan Sunday keepers whose prayers are an abomination to God, and they're going to one day supposedly hunt down and kill Seventh-Day Adventists. Yeah, those Protestants. So I thought, what the heck? Today, we're gonna smash 3 of the most common myths that I used to hear and still hear Adventists saying to this day. Speaking of smashing stuff, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you can be notified when content like this is uploaded. With that said, myth number 1. So if you understand the Adventist system of theology, you'll understand why this myth is a necessity. For those that don't know, the Adventist Church thinks that the Sabbath was changed to Sunday by the Roman Catholic Church, or some will say Constantine, as a way of the papacy demonstrating its authority to usurp the law of God, commingling itself with pagan sun worship. Yeah, when I said that earlier, I wasn't just trying to be facetious. I'll be making a video specifically dedicated to Adventist myths around Roman Catholicism, where I will go into this in more granular detail. But the fact of the matter is, the Christian Church has met on Sundays universally from its inception. Despite the many attempts by the SDA Church to say the Apostolic Church looked like them, this is not true. As has been shown on the channel before, we have historical documentation that long predates Constantine and the development of the papal seat of Rome. We have 1st and 2nd century source documentation of what the church universally believed at the time. The day of worship was one of them. There was zero division or argumentation over this. It was the first day, and this is just a matter of the historical facts. It has nothing to do with saying whether or not the 7th-day Sabbath is binding on Christians, by the way, Adventists. That is a different discussion. This is a matter of historical fact that the entirety of the churches in both East and West were worshiping on the first day. This automatically eliminates the SDA theory. Furthermore, Adventists, you need to do some studying on the Eastern branch of the Christian Church. The Eastern churches have never been under papal jurisdiction, and that's precisely one of the reasons for schism between the Eastern and Western churches. Look up the Great Schism of 1054. I'll give you a hint. It's a part of that inconvenient church history that the SDA Church doesn't bother to educate its congregants on. And by inconvenient, I mean actual church history. If worshiping on Sundays is a result of the papacy, Constantine, or the Council of Laodicea, 3 things that didn't involve any Eastern church representation, then why were all of the Eastern churches also worshiping on Sunday? So I used to hear this one constantly in conjunction with why Protestant churches aren't Seventh-day Sabbatarians, supposedly. It's because they think the Old Testament either isn't as authoritative as the New, or that the Sunday keepers don't think the Old Testament is valid today. This is a myth. From the 2000 Baptist Faith and Message to the Anglican 39 Articles, every major Protestant confession affirms both the Old and New Testaments to be the only infallible, inspired rule of faith and practice for the church. What you guys want to argue is hermeneutics. How is the Old Testament to be interpreted and applied? Disagreeing with the SDA Church's bad hermeneutics does not therefore mean that someone doesn't think the Old Testament is equally as authoritative as the New, or that it doesn't have application for us today. The idea of unhitching from the Old Testament or diminishing it is not new to the 19th and 20th centuries. This is called Marcionism. It was coined after the Roman theologian Marcion of Sinope, all the way back in the 2nd century. Among a host of heretical views, Marcion taught that the Old Testament scriptures were not as authoritative as the New. Protestants are not Marcionites. Are there some people that believe this? Of course, but it is a heresy and is held by a fringe people. So it would do the SDA Church well to stop with this argumentation that only applies to a fringe heretical sect. Protestants simply disagree with the Adventist Church's hermeneutics and the application of the Old Testament. We don't use a great controversy lens to interpret the Bible like you guys. This is very different than saying we think the Old Testament isn't as authoritative as the New. Probably the most outlandish of these myths is that Protestant churches are going to link arms with the papacy and spiritualism, forming a threefold union that will one day run America, essentially, and enforce a national Sunday worship mandate. Upon doing so, it will then be state-sanctioned. to hunt down Seventh-Day Adventists who will have to take a stand and die, not for Jesus Christ and the gospel, but for the seventh-day Sabbath. There are a plethora of reasons why this is absolutely absurd and won't happen. Facts tend to get in the way of the SDA narrative though. But let's focus on the historical and theological reasons. To believe such a thing requires a total lack of understanding of church history, one aspect being the Reformation. Most SDAs are getting their understanding of all of this from the Great Controversy, not history itself, though they would say that the Great Controversy is history. And that's precisely the problem. Without the Great Controversy lens, which doesn't come from Scripture, but the Adventist Church claims was uniquely given to them through Ellen, you would never arrive at these conclusions. This idea that the mark of the beast is Sunday worship and that America is one of the beasts in Revelation, etc. Most people, let alone most Protestants, have no clue who the Seventh-day Adventists are. We don't care that Adventists go to church on Saturday, even if a Sunday law were to come down the pike. Let's say hypothetically it did. The idea that Protestants will become enraged at a group of people they don't know from Adam to have this innate desire to now become a stooge for the government to hunt down this group is just silly. This has evolved since I was a kid, but now the theory is that it will come in the form of green laws. Everyone will be mandated to rest on Sundays in the name of the environment. So before it was the blue laws that had the SDA Church in a panic, now it's the analogous color laws. Maybe we're just moving through the entire color spectrum at this point. But anyways, this whole idea is silly, and it showcases a lack of understanding theologically between Protestants and Catholics, and it doesn't even take into consideration the Eastern churches. Like most of Ellen's ideas, they were shaped and framed through an exclusively Western mindset. Hey, so those are the 3 biggest myths that I used to hear when I was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I still hear today. If you're a former Adventist, maybe you're a Roman Catholic, and you've heard some crazy myths from the Adventist Church, I want to hear them. Drop them in the comment section down below. Until next time, I'll catch you guys around. God bless.